City of Stevens Point Finance Committee meeting, recorded February 14, 2022.
And thanks for the opportunity to still attend remotely as I await a COVID test, so I didn't want to expose anybody. Thank you, everyone. It is 6 o'clock, and I'm going to call the, excuse me, the February 14th, happy Valentine's Day, meeting of the Finance Committee for the City of Stevens Point. The first item on our agenda is non-action items, including a roll call.
Yep. Dalton.
Here.
Johnson.
I am here.
Morrow.
Here.
Okay. Shore.
Here.
And Slowinski.
Here.
5 present.
Excellent. Thank you so much. All right, moving on. Non-action item is simply an update on the Surface Transportation Program Urban Funding Grant.
Director
I know this is
Badun is
also
walking
going
to the
to
lectern.
be. Oh, thank you. Thank you.
So, yes, good evening, everyone. Yeah, asked otherwise to just put otherwise an update in here. I hope I actually captured most of what it was in the memo that was presented there. So probably mostly here just to answer any questions if there are any. The application was also attached to the memo to show some of the details of it. In quick summary, the segment of which that we have applied for in this current cycle is the South City Limits to Michigan Avenue. Total project cost, as I listed, is about just over $6 million. When you start to factor in non-participating costs that are part of that total cost estimate, that's why if you did the math and figured out it wasn't quite 80%, of course, on the split between there, but we'd be looking at about $3.75 million in grant funding with about $2.25 million in city funding is what the application otherwise was. That has been submitted. As I also noted in there that we won't know until next month when the awards are released if we have been successful or not.
Director, as we talked about earlier today with the certification of the petition signatures, if this segment is designed slightly differently, that wouldn't disqualify us necessarily from achieving this grant, correct?
Ultimately, that's the DOT's call. Typically, however, if you have something that they otherwise see as an equivalent improvement, they're not otherwise going to deny you that. Where it comes into a limitation is simply just the dollar figures, that. It's unlikely there's going to be extra money left over that they're going to say, oh, if you need more money, we've got some. It's going to be capped at what we've asked for in there. But more often than not, yes, they would allow us a substitution there, provided it's, of course, considered to be of an equal improvement. And by that, what I otherwise mean is if we were, planning for, in this particular case, we have an urban shoulder. If we completely eliminate the urban shoulder, that may trigger them to say, well, wait a minute, you've changed the multimodal component of this. Or if we made some other significant where we weren't going to provide a relative equivalent improvement to the pedestrian environment, or just the general traffic, movement as we saw it was somehow going to be altered, then they might. But provided it's otherwise generally considered equal to, no, typically they don't deny that. For you, they'll allow that change as you go through it. It just caps the dollars that we can receive.
Thanks.
Thank you.
You have Alder Morrow having a question. And then Alder
Thank you
Shore.
for helping to facilitate. I appreciate
Not a
it.
problem.
But from what I hear you saying, and I might be wrong, like we do have to improve the road. We can't just redo it the way it is now.
Generally speaking, that would be the idea. With the DOT, they're looking for improvements. It's not just necessarily the pavement quality, but they're always it's competitive. My guess is I don't know what else was implied, been presented to it, but the idea is that in a competitive environment, it's always a matter of improving the environment, which it is. So it's not simply just the motor vehicle traffic; it's the other components of it. So yes, we would have to try to identify that we're being comparable in that with whatever we might try to substitute for this. Yes.
Okay. Great.
Other questions?
You have Shore and then Slowinski as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair and Mayor. So this helps me understand a question that I raised a few meetings ago, which is how the approval of the plan from last fall relates to applying for the funds. And it's certainly sooner than I thought, because would this change the time? So question one, I understood the timeline was that this would be the second segment dealt with
That-
after the north
That is
segment.
correct. That's how we foresee it, yes.
So it wouldn't affect that necessarily.
No, that timeline put together by ECAM was, based upon, the thought process that we may get this grant. And we did apply at the end, you'll notice from the application, we applied for the fiscal year '26 timeframe. So we're at the end of this current program cycle, if we're otherwise awarded, to give us time to prepare, to get started on the other side and get this one set up and ready to go.
So then my other question is about the competitiveness. Total funding available for any and all applications, the total budget that there is 6.5 million. That's not a per, that's not the size that,
Out of all, there's a lot more money out there but it's broken up by population. And so between the 20,000 and 50,000 population communities, that is the limit. And, $6.5 million, that's what we're competing against, or for,
for.
yes.
In other words, that's
So
not just
our
like the
part of
most
that-
that you could get, that's the total.
Right, and
Wow,
the
that's-
reality is, the chances are is,
From this grant. there
right,
are
from
other
this cycle.
opportunities.
So, and that's, part of the reason is choosing what we submit on is important, because the DOT, again, their kind of unwritten rules are they want to share as much of that as they can. So we could easily, for this project, ask for the whole thing, and even more if we really wanted to. We'd have a project that would reach that limit. It's just not in our interest to do that. We can't take the whole pot of money and expect to get it. So we try to identify a project that had understandable termini in it. So, we have logical areas to begin and end a project, and then we try to work within that to see that we could get there. We're only asking for a portion of their funding, such that they could share, we can share nicely with some other communities if they so choose to grant us our request.
Thanks.
And then you
Is
have
that
Alder Slowinski. But before
Okay.
you start, anyone who hasn't signed in, could you please sign in? Carrie just reminded me that we need a sign in so we know who's at the meeting. So if you haven't signed in, there's a sign in sheet at the door, please do so.
Yeah.
So,
Go-
and I think Alder Shore was getting at my question, and basically my question is there a timeline that these monies need to be expended? Because again, we're talking about, we were being told that the northern part was gonna be the first one.
Correct.
Is there a timeline that we have to expend these monies on this?
There is, I forget exactly, there is a sunset date on there. I forget exactly what it is. I think, federally, I think it's 10 years. I think with the state, I think they usually require, it's 6 years, I believe, we need to expend the dollars,
Okay. So there's it's,
or there roughly.
we have time. It's
So-
not like we have to spend it within 2 or 3 years.
Correct.
We do have a little larger window. Okay. Thank you.
Is that all, Alder Slawinski?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I just wanted to comment that I had spoken, thank you, Director, for all the clarifications. I'd spoken with Mr. Wendt at DOT, and he provided a lot of information too on how we can work through some of the challenges we're facing. And just as you were saying, Director, it was very helpful, whether it is different sort of modifications to the current plan, and different ways to accommodate concerns. But in general, Mr. Wendt said he was very impressed with the proposal from the city of Stevens Point. So let's put a feather in the cap of staff who put this together. So thank you. Is that all, Director?
That's all I have, unless there's any further questions.
All right.
All right, thank you.
I don't
Thank
see
you so
anything in here, nor do I see anything online.
Thank you. Thanks. I appreciate the time. All right, moving on. Discussion and possible action on item 3. Discussion and possible, excuse me. Discussion and possible action on consideration of claims Corey Rolack damage from pothole. I don't know if that's going to be Comptroller Treasurer.
Is Corey in
Yeah,
here?
I'll
Hang on.
I can take this one. So a claim was submitted related to damage from hitting a hole in the street. And we did submit that to our insurance company, as we always do. They did review it and are recommending that we deny the claim.
Okay, and yes, is the claimant in the room or online?
I see no one indicating they are.
All right, sending it back to the committee. What is your wish?
Alder Dalton, I'll make a motion to deny the claim.
No, I'll second.
All right,
Seconded by Slawinski.
we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed would be no. Abstentions? Motion carries. Item 4, discussion and possible action on approval of claims paid. Of course, there's 2 months there because we did not meet last month. I'd entertain a motion related to the claims paid.
Alder Morrow, so moved.
So moved, assuming both months, Alder Morrow?
Morrow moved, Shore seconds.
Excellent. Any discussion or questions? Excellent. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed would be no. Abstentions? Motion carries. And then the last item on our agenda is adjournment. I would entertain a motion.
Move to adjourn.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And we are adjourned at 6:11. Thank you, everyone.
A video of this meeting is available for viewing on the city's website, stevenspoint.com/videos.